The most stressed horse I've ever cared for wasn't isolated, wasn't mistreated, was never abused. He lived in a spotless stall, ate on a perfect schedule, had an attentive, caring owner. And yet his body was in a state of chronic stress the entire time. Because the problem wasn't anything wrong, it was exactly what everyone considers right. I'm Brian. I've worked in horse management for 13 years, and this channel was born from something really simple. I'm passionate about horses. That's the only reason. I love understanding how they think, how they feel, and I especially love taking apart the things we do, just because that's how it's always been done in the equestrian world. Today, I picked 6 practices that almost everyone treats as completely normal in day-to-day life with a horse. Things we don't even stop to think about. But studies, cortisol, heart rate, observed behavior, all of it shows that these practices create a level of stress we simply don't see, because the horse has no way of telling us. Before we start, if you're not subscribed to the channel yet, now's the time. And down in the description, the first link has a gift I prepared for you. I'll come back to it at the end, but just know it's worth clicking. Let's get into the 6 points. Point 1, leaving the horse alone, even just for a bit. The first one is the most common of all. Taking the horse out of the herd, putting it in a separate stall, hauling it alone in a trailer, leaving it tied away from the others while you get the saddle ready. For us, that's routine. For the horse, that's a threat. A horse is a prey animal, and a lone prey animal is a vulnerable one. There's a report published on the specialized site The Horse, covering research by Gemma Pearson from the University of Edinburgh, alongside colleagues like Kelly Yarnell, that documented increased cortisol and visible behavioral changes in isolated horses. And there's a finding that really stuck with me. Researchers from the Federal University of Paraná and Colorado State University found altered white blood cell profiles in horses that had been housed alone for 6 months or more, meaning the animal's body genuinely registers this isolation as chronic stress, with a real effect on immunity. Another study published in the journal Animal Cognition tested Haflinger horses alone versus accompanied by an unfamiliar person standing nearby. Cortisol rose in both cases, but the heart rate pattern changed quite differently, depending on whether the horse was alone or accompanied, reinforcing that a person's mere presence already changes the animal's physiology. Let me quickly break down what these studies actually found about isolation. Physiological responses, an immediate increase in heart rate, respiratory rate, and eye temperature as soon as the horse is separated from others. Facial indicators, flared nostrils, visible muscle tension, and more white showing in the eyes. Signs researchers actually use to measure acute stress. Stress behavior, pacing back and forth in the stall, repeated whinnying to call the herd, more frequent defecation, and a pattern that alternates between apathy and hypervigilance. I remember a horse early in my career that we used to call difficult whenever it was time to load him alone into the trailer. He'd sweat, throw his head, try to get out. Everyone said he was spoiled. It was only later that I understood. He had never loaded alone. He always went in with his herd pattern. He didn't change the horse. He changed the process. Another horse nearby until he loaded, gradually phased it out, and the difficult behavior simply disappeared. He was never spoiled. He was scared. We hadn't noticed. It was around that time, seeing case after case of a horse labeled. It was actually stressed that nobody could know. The idea for horse fixed meals a day, feeding the horse at 2 fixed times, morning and late afternoon, the way pretty much every stable in equestrian cemetery. Except in the wild, a horse grazes for up to 16 hours a day. Its digestive system was built to receive fiber continuously, producing saliva the whole time, and it's saliva that neutralizes stomach acid. When a horse goes hours without eating, that acid keeps being produced, just with nothing left to neutralize it. According to Pete MD's material on behavioral stressors and gastric ulcers, this 2 meals a day model tends to increase stress and ulcer risk. And there's a very specific piece of research cited by Mad Barn and by Spillers showing that going more than 6 hours without forage already significantly raises the risk of ulcers in the non-glandular region of the stomach. That's why there's so much talk today about slow feeders, small hole hay nets, hay spread across several points in the stall. All of it exists to mimic continuous grazing. And here's what strikes me most. Equine gastric ulcer syndrome is now described as having more than 90% prevalence in racehorses and more than 50% in competition horses overall. That's not the exception. That's the rule under traditional management. Point 3. Comfortable stall, but no free time to move. We think we've done our job if the stall is clean, roomy, with good bedding. But that doesn't replace free movement. There's a study done at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, comparing horses with 15 minutes of turnout a day against 60 minutes a day. The 15-minute group showed stress signs in heart rate variability and behaviors like circling inside the stall. The classic caged pattern showed up more often. And there's another finding I think is worth repeating. Research shows that confinement beyond 4 hours straight is already linked to more repetitive behavior, like the horse rocking its head back and forth, the so-called weaving, or always pacing the same path inside the stall. Point 4. Flipping the horse's routine overnight. Switching the horse's stall, herd, or routine all at once with no transition. A horse is a creature of habit. It memorizes feeding time, memorizes where each companion is, even memorizes the path to the arena. When that suddenly changes, a sale, a move to a new stable, stall renovations, a new horse joining the group, its body reacts as if it were a real threat, even with no actual physical danger. This ties directly back to what we already covered in the previous points. A change in routine, combined with isolation and confinement, stacks stress instead of spreading it out. And there's literature showing that time in individual housing is linked to more stereotypies precisely because it piles social isolation on top of loss of routine at the same time. I once had a client call me in a panic because his horse changed overnight after a move to a new stable. Stopped eating properly, got aggressive at haltering time, started kicking the stall door. My first question was, what changed all at once? And everything had changed. Stallmate, schedule, bedding type, even the smell of the place. We brought stability back gradually. First we fixed the feeding schedule, then we put him back near a horse he already knew. Within 2 weeks, the behavior had pretty much normalized. Point 5. How you feel affects your horse more than you think. 5th point. And this one's talked about way less. Your tension becomes your horse's tension. A recent study on human-horse interaction compared the same type of handling done 2 ways, with the handler freely expressing anxiety through their body, and with the handler using a more contained, neutral posture. The result was that the horse showed noticeably bigger physiological and behavioral stress signs when the person let anxiety leak through their body, even though it was the same task, the same animal. The researcher's conclusion was straightforward. The horse doesn't directly sense your emotion, it reads your body language, and more structured, neutral handling considerably reduces this stress transfer. I've seen this firsthand, with myself. There was a stretch where I had a lot going on personally, and I noticed the horses I was handling were more alert, more reactive with me than with other handlers doing the exact same task. Trying to fake it verbally didn't help at all. I had to work on my own posture, breathing, pace of movement, and the change in the horse's behavior was almost immediate. Point 6. Handling the horse with zero choice in the matter. Handling the horse in a way where it never has any control over what's happening to it. Always restrained, always forced, never given the option to back off or react in a safe way. There's a study with Lusitano foals that compared daily intensive handling against more spaced out handling and also against no handling at all. The interesting conclusion was that handling, when done with zero control given to the animal over the situation, didn't improve the foal's adaptation to stress as much as expected. And the researchers themselves concluded that lack of choice over one's own environment is perceived as stressful by the horse, affecting its mental state and quality of life, regardless of the handler's positive intent. This lines up with a broader body of research, including work cited in reference books like Equine Behavior, a guide for veterinarians and equine scientists by Paul McGreevy, one of the most respected resources on equine behavior, which I highly recommend if you want to go deeper on this. The core idea is the same. Welfare isn't just the absence of pain, it's also having some degree of predictability and control over what happens to you. I changed the way I work quite a bit after understanding this. Today, before doing any more uncomfortable procedure, farrier work, an injection, clipping, I try to give the horse a moment to process what's coming, instead of just restraining and getting it done fast. It's not always possible. There are emergency situations where you simply can't. But day to day, this completely changed the relationship I have with the horses I handle. They're visibly calmer with me than with someone who does everything on autopilot. So let me run through this quick. It's things we treat as the most normal thing in the world. And the cortisol, the heart rate, the animal's own behavior show they're not that normal after all. I didn't bring this up to make anyone feel guilty. I made plenty of these mistakes myself throughout my career. And that's exactly why I started this channel. Because I'm passionate about horses. And the better we understand how they work, the better we can take care of them. If this video helped you see something differently, subscribe to the channel. It really helps this work keep going. And don't forget, down in the description, the first link has that gift I prepared just for you. Click it before you go. Take care and see you in the next video.